that my role in our little conversation here every day is not to be an opinion person, not to be a persuasive person, not to get you to think like me. My job is just to get you to think and then think again. And then together, we'll all think again about what we think again, because that's how progress is actually made. And so I believe that's my job, and my role, again, is not an agenda. It's not an advocacy. My job is to present information, to share information from other great thinkers, great leaders, and then make sure you have an opportunity to think for yourself and think again about what you think you know. Because that always leads all of us to places where, like, oh, I never thought of it that way before, or that's a great idea, or wow, I wish I had known that before. To me, that's the job. And so there's an interesting debate going on. Obviously, there was a big stir when the Washington Post announced that they would not be endorsing a presidential candidate. Now, they've had periods over their history where they've done this and then gone back and forth. I believe from 1933 to 1945, they had a publisher who did not believe in endorsements. And so they didn't. And then they decided that they would. And that's their prerogative. Organizations, institutions can choose to do those things. That's their deal. That's the way it works in America. The interesting thing on this one, of course, that drew a lot of attention is the fact that it's so late in the game. Here we are 1 week before the election, and suddenly the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, and USA Today are saying, we're not going to endorse this year. We did last time, but we're not going to this time. That part's a little problematic for me in terms of a timing issue. I will tell you that I have always been anti-endorsement because I don't believe in endorsements. I don't believe they're good to give. I don't think they help all that much when you receive it. In many cases, you're offending half the people no matter what you do. And so you're just better off not doing it. I would often have people when I was working in Washington who would come wanting an endorsement from someone, and I always advised against it. I just don't think, I don't think they're all that helpful. I don't think they're all that influential. They do create a lot of media stir and a few clicks and some good fundraising emails. But in the end, are you really going to walk into a voting booth and say, you know what, I'm going to vote today because this celebrity endorsed this candidate, this rock star endorsed this candidate, or this pro athlete, or this other politician endorsed this candidate? If that's the reason you're going in to vote, that's not a good day for the Republic. And so I'm not a big believer in endorsements either way. But I do find it interesting in terms of where it leads us in the discussion about media and about journalism in particular. One of the things that Jeff Bezos wrote in his op-ed, so this is an interesting thing. So you have the owner of the paper writing an opinion piece for the paper, for their editorial section, about why they weren't endorsing. And one of the things that he alluded to that I think is right and important, I don't agree with Jeff Bezos on a whole host of things, but he did hit it on the nail on the head when he said we have a perception problem. Because for us to be effective, we have to not only present the truth, we have to people believe that we're presenting the truth. And we've conflated so many different things in our society that it makes it really hard to ferret all of that out. Just looking at simple things between something that is journalism, something that is opinion, and something that is an editorial. Editorial, of course, is more the voice of the institution, in this case, the Washington Post. An opinion piece, that would be guys like me who come on and write things and share opinions about things. And then you have the pure journalist who's out there to get just the facts, tell the story, present what they know for sure. Not advocacy, not any of those kinds of things. And all of those, sadly, have become conflated in our modern world. In many cases, you could present a lot of this to a consumer, to a reader, and they probably wouldn't be able to tell you unless they looked really closely which is which, because we've sort of made it this big jumbled mess. Part of that is the advent of cable news, because on cable news, you may have one person on the screen who is a reporter, a journalist, who's trying to get to the facts and just tell that story straight up. Sitting next to them, you may have someone who's an opinion person, or a columnist, or someone who's just an advisor or a commentator of some sort. And all of those get all mushed together, and some you'll have on there who'd be advocates for a certain position or a certain side of the aisle in an argument or a debate. And all of those people are all on the screen together having an argument. And so then everything gets muddled. Where are the facts? What's perception? What's reality? Who's got an agenda? Who's being paid by who? All of that gets pretty confusing pretty fast. And then to compound that, most of us consume these pieces of information within our social media feeds. And so in many cases, we're not going as you would in the old days. You'd open up the newspaper and you'd read the stories and the things that were done in journalism. There would be an opinion section where you could read from different opinion columnists, and then there'd be an editorial from the institution, from the paper. Most people aren't even going to the websites of the Washington Post. They just have little pieces of it served up in their social media feed. So it's just an article. And if you're not watching for it, you may not notice whether that's an opinion column, whether that's just a news story, or whether it's something from the editorial board. So all of that leads us to a pretty scary place where we don't have any shared language and we don't have any shared facts, and it makes it really hard to have better conversations about real issues. And so I'm totally good with the Washington Post saying, you know what, we're going to get out of that business. And one of the things that Mr. Bezos said that I thought was important, he described the lack of trust and credibility and confidence in the institution. He said, we have to do something different if we want to be relevant moving into the future, because they do have a perception problem in terms of trust. People have to believe it, and they have to believe you can actually do it. And so getting to that different perspective, I think, is the real key to all of this. And so I do think it's time to reimagine and to think again as consumers for all of us. What am I consuming? What am I reading? What am I watching? You throw podcasters into the mix, and that's a whole different realm. Not journalists, not under any code of ethics. Many of them are famous because of other things that they've done or that they are doing, that they have a good social media following. And so there's more of these off-the-cuff kind of conversations. And again, highly entertaining. There's a space for that. But when we conflate all of those things from a podcaster, an influencer, a journalist, an opinion writer, and an editorial board, and we make them all the same thing, that's where we get into trouble. And I can tell you from my experience, I know some journalists that are the best of the best. They function with integrity. They run every story to ground. They pursue every option. They're not biased. They don't have an agenda. They're just trying to get to the truth, and they're just trying to tell the story with the facts. And yes, I have encountered those in the media, journalists by title, who do have an agenda, who are advocates for certain things. And they taint the industry, and that hurts. And I know opinion writers and columnists and commentators who have the highest levels of integrity. And I know some who will say whatever they're told to say because they're getting a paycheck. And so like any industry, there are good and bad players. The challenge, and it's increasingly difficult, is for us to be able to discern. And to discern, you have to go past the headlines. You can't just accept everything at face value. And so, yes, it does require us to do a little more work and to expect a little bit more. And also to make sure that we're not validating and rewarding bad behavior. Because remember, if the only things that get clicked on, read, consumed, listened to are the sensational things, or the outrageous things, or the crazy headline things that may not have any substance underneath the headline, then we're going to get more of that because we're rewarding bad behavior. So whether it's a presidential endorsement or non-endorsement, or whether it's just something that you want to read because you're interested in a subject, we got to think again about what we think we know, and we'll continue to invite you to join us in that process to think again, because as I said as we started, my job is not to get you to think like me. My job is to get you to think and then to think again. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. What is even happening?
BYU takes the win.
What a great play call.
It's a sunshine celebration.
Congrats to our BYU Cougars, tracking to the Big 12 championship game with win number 8. Listen to Cougar Sports Saturday this weekend from noon to 3 on your legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Many people worry they're not making the right investment choices inside their 401ks. Did you know that you might have a little-known opportunity to add some additional investment choices to your 401k and get the help and recommendations you've been looking for? This exciting feature is called a self-directed brokerage window. And the best part? The money still stays within your 401k. Learn how the trusted advisors at Capital Wealth may be able to expand your investment portfolio. To learn more, call or text the word VISIT to 801-877-9800 or go to CapitalWealth401k.com. Improving your 401k might mean the difference of retiring a few years earlier. Let's find out. Schedule your no-cost 15-minute consultation with the Capital Wealth team today. Call or text the word VISIT to 801-877-9800 or go to CapitalWealth401k.com. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
Progressive presents good news, bad news, dumb news, then great news. Good news. While leaning over the fence, your neighbor said you could save money bundling home and auto insurance with Progressive. Bad news. Your neighbor leaned over a little too much and broke your fence. Dumb news. Somehow fence wood is more expensive than wood. Great news. You decide to see if you could save money bundling at Progressive.com and to plant really tall shrubs. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
The future of cool, comfortable sleep is here. Introducing the new Sleep Number Climate Cool Smart Bed. The only smart bed in the world that actively cools and effortlessly adjusts to both of you. Sleep up to 15 degrees cooler on each side. It actively cools to keep you cool and comfortable throughout the night. Save on smart beds now during our fall sale, exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
911, what's your emergency?
They kidnapped my son.
What would you do if your child disappeared and someone you trusted was responsible?
We thought he cared for McKay, when in fact he didn't care for anyone.
Listen to Ransom now at ransompodcast.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. Travel for sports having a big impact on downtown Salt Lake City. Second, Vice President Harris planning a speech in Washington tonight on the same spot where former President Trump spoke before the January 6th attacks on the U.S. Capitol. And third, Utah has a way to track your ballot after you drop it in the mail or the ballot box. 45 degrees, cloudy and windy in Salt Lake. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Earlier this week, on October 27th, marked International Religious Freedom Day. It's a perfect opportunity to remember those around the world persecuted for practicing their faith. More importantly, it's time to commit to doing something to promote religious freedom all around the world, of all faiths and of no faith. That important ability that we all have to think and to feel and to act on those things is vital to freedom all around the world. Knox Thames is served in the Obama and the Trump administration at the State Department in a special envoy role focused on religious minorities in the Middle East and South Asia. Has a brand new book out. It came out in September called Ending Persecution, Charting the Path to Global Religious Freedom. Also has a great piece at Deseret.com this week. And Knox, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. It's my pleasure to join you again.
So as we look at this, obviously coming down the final week of campaign season, and I think you and I share a little bit of angst in one of those things that just has not been in any campaign conversation is the role of religious freedom, not only here in the United States, but around the world. But give us a little sense, especially as we've marked this International Religious Freedom Day. Give us a little bit of the lay of the land. I think we take it for granted here, but what does religious freedom really look like around the world today?
For sure. Yeah, I often talk about a pandemic of persecution that's impacting people of every faith community somewhere. The Pew Research Center has reported that roughly 2 out of every 3 people on earth live in countries that restrict the free practice of faith. Now, that doesn't mean they're all being persecuted, but they live in these very restrictive environments where if they question the established ideologies, want to change faith, leave faith altogether, they'll either be prosecuted by their government or persecuted by their neighbor or both. And so in this harsh climate for religious freedom, it's imperative that the United States continue to lead, as we have for over a quarter of a century, in our diplomacy, but we can't just keep doing the same thing. We need to continue to push ahead and innovate. And it's unfortunate that neither candidate has been talking about religious freedom or human rights in the global sense and the United States' role, because we really are the indispensable actor when it comes to these values issues in foreign policy.
Yeah, no question about that. And give us some insight from your service and your time, as well as just some perspective around the world. We know of the Uyghur Muslims in China, the Tibetan Buddhists, underground Christians all over the world. Give us a little sense in terms of what kinds of things are we seeing and what is the direction of all of that? And then we'll come back and get to some of those creative things you're talking about in terms of how do we change the policy strategy?
Well, in my book, I try to break down persecution into 4 different types. You know, religious persecution seems monolithic. It's this huge problem. But there are 4 different types I've identified. One is authoritarian persecution, what you see in China, the way they're going after the groups you identified, but also extremist persecution in a country like Pakistan, where mobs will go and burn down a Christian village or attack Ahmadiyya Muslims who believe a little bit differently than they do. You have democratic persecution in a place like India, where minority protections are being dissolved, and so the power of the majority just to change their beliefs into law victimizes Christians and Muslims. And then the last form is terrorism, which is ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, where because of their hatred of the other communities, they're willing to use violence to go kill, maim, and murder to affect their theocratic agenda. And with each of these, in the book, I have a chapter, but I also have a corresponding chapter about what we tried to do when I was in government, what worked, what didn't, and some ideas for next steps moving forward.
Yeah, and so let's talk about how we reimagine that. I think you're right that American leadership is the indispensable component in changing the dynamics of that around the world. Give us some sense in each of those scenarios in terms of what is it that we could reimagine or do differently when it comes to the U.S. role in all of that.
I mean, first, all Americans, we should be incredibly proud of how much our country does for religious freedom, for human rights. We're second to none. We are really a global leader on this, but good isn't good enough in the face of this pandemic of persecution. So we've got to continue to do the basics, which is shine a light on abuses. And when Narendra Modi or Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping has policies that persecute, we need to call a spade and not be shy about that, and be because this is who we are. This is part of our values, that we care about these issues. But in addition to that, we've got to make sure our words matter. And so there needs to be consequences if circumstances don't change, if abuses continue. Otherwise, this becomes hyperbole. It kills our credibility. It sells out both the strength of our word, and it sells out the victims we're trying to help if we don't tie consequences to our to our words, deeds with actions. And that's the part that no administration, Republican or Democratic, has really followed all the way through. I think I put in the piece, it's a sad bipartisan tradition of not pulling punches when it comes to really pushing for religious freedom reforms. And this is an area where we can and should do better.
Yeah, and it is one that should be bipartisan. There should be no question
Amen.
that
Right.
that we're willing to stand for religious freedom and human rights, because those are the very things that we're so dependent on at the core of our core in this country.
Absolutely.
And so, as the new administration comes in, one of the things you pointed out that got me thinking again is that this is one of those issues. That sitting very comfortably within the United States is easy to say that's somebody else's problem on some other side of the planet. But we know that that's never more than really a half a step away. How do we change the dynamic in terms of how we perceive this and how it does become a little bit more center to a lot of those crucial conversations?
Yeah. I mean, I think religious freedom is where our interests and values meet. Of course, religious freedom, as you said, is a core American value. It's written into literally the DNA of who we are as a country. And so many of the people that came to these shores were fleeing religious persecution. So it's part of our founding narrative, and it's part of why people came here. But at the same time, it's in our interest that we promote religious freedom, we combat persecution, because we know that environments that are lacking this are more unstable, more likely to breed violent extremism. The countries that are persecuting are not good partners, are not aligned with us. So if we can get this right, this will remove one of the drivers of the mass migration we're seeing around the world. This will remove the violence and the terrorism that is destabilizing entire regions of the world. So we can't ignore it. Of course, the burdens of leadership weigh heavy, but the world is so interconnected. What happens overseas doesn't stay overseas. So we should be doing this because it's who we are as a country, and it's part of making the world we want to live in become a reality.
Yeah, I love the way you frame that in terms of that interconnectedness, and there's also an interdependentness within all of that I think is so vital to this. And if we do either shrug our shoulders and say, not my problem, or we point fingers and place blame that it's someone else's, to me, this is one of those areas where we need more shoulder squaring. And a lot more people being willing to say, one, we're not going to reward bad behavior by either ignoring it or looking away or not enforcing sanctions, but we are going to reward good behavior, and where we see those changes, that we can validate that those positive changes, and that's how you get some of that momentum. Just in our last 30 seconds, give us one thing that you wish we all would maybe think again about what we think we know when it comes to religious freedom around the world.
Well, it impacts everybody. While I think the United States is, we should recognize the immense liberties we enjoy for freedom of thought, conscience, and belief here. Yes, we're not perfect. We've got issues we need to work out. But I've often said a bad day in the United States beats a good day at just about any other country around the world. And so while we'll continue to perfect our union and to make sure our religious liberties are protected, the reality for millions and millions of people is that they must risk violence every day for the simple acts that we take for granted here. And so having that perspective and remembering that will lead us to, I think, a better engagement and a better foreign policy.
Such great stuff. Knox Thames served in the Obama and the Trump administration at the State Department, special envoy role focused on religious minorities in the Middle East and South Asia. His new book, Ending Persecution, Charting the Path to Global Religious Freedom, a great read. Check that one out. And also you can check out his piece at Deseret.com. Knox, as always, thanks for your perspective. Important work. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More inside sources coming up next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. If you're among the 400,000 Utahns who've already voted in this election, you can track your ballot now to make sure it's being processed and counted. KSL News Radio's Alessandra Gur says it's easy.
There's a simple way to know where your ballot is at all times and whether something wrong happened to it. The first thing thing you'll want to do is go to the internet on your phone or laptop and search for vote.utah.gov. It will bring you to a homepage where you can scroll down a little bit and click on Track My Mail or Provisional Ballot, then click Check Ballot Status and fill in information like your name, date of birth, and address. Once that's submitted, it will take you to a page where you can see your type of ballot and its current status.
And now the last day to mail in ballots is next Monday, November 4th, to get the postmark before Election Day. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Actor Terry Garr has died at the age of 79. She was known for her roles in Young Frankenstein, Mr. Mom, many other movies, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the TV show Friends. Her publicist says she died from multiple sclerosis. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day right now, 80 points, while the NASDAQ has been up all day, right now up 180 points. And our KSL weather, looks like the rain is finally done. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
And now a minute of kindness brought to you by One Kind Act a Day. In a wonderful example of community spirit and honesty, Miranda Broadhead White recently shared a heartwarming experience on Alpine's community kindness page. After accidentally dropping her wallet at a local Walmart, Miranda retraced her steps, sought help from employees, but her search was in vain. Just as she was about to leave, a very kind employee stopped her to deliver the news that her wallet had been turned in, intact and with every dollar still inside. Miranda expressed her heartfelt gratitude for the honest person who returned the wallet, reminding us all that small acts of integrity can restore big faith in humanity and strengthen our community bonds. Find out more about how you can be involved online at thepowerofkind.org. That's thepowerofkind.org.
I'm Utah Tax Attorney Jordan Wilcox. Listen to what actual clients have had to say about working with us.
Hi, I'm Gary. I'm a building contractor. About a year prior to the market crashing, we had a big job that was unable to pay a bill of about 6 figures. We were still left with a very difficult situation with the IRS. Eventually, at the end of the day, I realized that the penalties and interest were growing faster than my ability to save to deal with it. I had talked to people and I felt that Jordan Wilcox represented best what I thought could help me, primarily because they were local. And I needed a bigger solution than I was coming up with. It takes too long to figure it out on your own.
Hi, I'm Jordan Wilcox. You need a tax attorney that's not afraid to fight for you. Visit taxhelput.com to schedule your free consultation.
I would recommend Jordan Wilcox. It feels very good to not have the IRS on your back.
That's taxhelput.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
Just a reminder that snowplows are out taking care of Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon, where the roads have been snow-covered at times in the higher elevations. Looks like we have a new accident in going from Juab to Utah County, northbound I-15. It's 2 miles south of Santaquin. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
There's a freeze warning tonight for northern Utah. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow and Halloween with just a chance of showers. And right now, 45 degrees, cloudy and windy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
A week from today is the first Tuesday of November. The 2024 elections are right around the corner. Early voting numbers are already storming in, generating all kinds of significant conversations. And while some love the convenience of early voting, others have concerns about the increased reliance on mail-in ballots. Partisan trends in early voting are becoming more clear, making many eager to see how it's going to play out in terms of final results of a very contentious election cycle and how early voting is shaping American democracy. Ellen Ionis covers global and general assignment news as the World and Weekend reporter at Vox. Has a great piece at Vox.com today about early voting and joins us on the line. Ellen, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so let's start with kind of the lay of the land. What's the state of the early voting tally across the country? What are some of the trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, so we are seeing a lot more Republicans utilizing early voting this election cycle than in the past. In past elections, that was certainly something that Democrats would really do right out the gate. And that's shifted a lot, which is it's a really interesting shift to pay attention to. Whether that's going to be meaningful in the end, we just don't know.
Yeah, so interesting. As you said, that's been an area where the Democrats have historically done a little bit better, kind of getting things organized and prioritized and out the door. And so to see the Republicans kind of edging forward in that is interesting. And as you said, whether that holds or what that means on Election Day will also be really fascinating to watch. What are some of the things underneath those numbers that you've been digging into, Ellen, that might be interesting in terms of what we should expect over the next 7 days?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to early voting, it's really hard to make national predictions because the way people vote early or people are able to vote early just varies so much state by state. So you'll have states in the West, like one of your neighbors, Colorado, where you're going to see a lot of mail-in ballots, essentially almost exclusively mail-in ballots. That's going to be the case also in Washington State, in Oregon as well. That's not so much the case here on the East Coast where we have early voting. We do really a mix of in-person voting. We do some mail-in ballots. So, that just really changes, and it's just not something we're as used to on the East Coast over here. So, people's attitudes about early voting also differ across the country. So we can't make big sweeping predictions about what happens a week from today. But it's definitely it's been a trend that's been on the increase, especially in the past couple of election cycles. Of course, 2020 was a huge anomaly because of the pandemic. People were really utilizing mail-in balloting for obvious reasons. People were not keen to gather in person. So that was definitely an anomaly. But we do see, a steady increase over each election cycle in early voting. And, a lot of people find that to be very convenient, and it's just an expanded option. But we don't know that it necessarily increases turnout significantly.
Yeah, and that'll be a fascinating thing to watch. And I've been trying to think through some of these numbers, and I think some of the interesting things are, one, those people who have just flat out decided, and maybe decided earlier than normal, that's an interesting component to it. How this impacts campaign strategy in terms of when usually you'd kind of hold up and do that big last push during the final week of the campaign with a new advertising scheme. And those things have to be recalibrated given the fact that a good chunk of people are already done and ready to move on to Thanksgiving and a little more football.
Well, yeah, you raise a really interesting point because that shifts the way campaigns spend money. It shifts the way they spend their time. And, of course, former President Donald Trump has, kind of gone back and forth. He has gone back and forth. Of course, in 2020, he was really disparaging mail-in voting quite a lot and, kind of seeding this idea that there was going to be a lot of vote tampering, a lot of fraud, due to that mail-in balloting, which of course was not true. But this time around, he has encouraged. He's been quite a bit more encouraging for his followers to go ahead and vote. And we do see that play out in this an earlier rise in Republicans voting early. So they were really, quick out of the gate. Democrats have really picked up. They're about even in terms of who has registered Republicans versus registered Democrats who have turned in early ballots or voted early. But it was definitely Republicans coming out pretty early in that.
Yeah, it's, such an interesting framing of all of that. And anything else as you were digging into all of this? Anything kind of surprise you, or any kind of aha moments in terms of what this might mean, not just for this election cycle, but moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to predict the future, and that's why we look at polls a lot, and we hope the polls will predict the future. I think people tend to do the same with this kind of early voting, and put a lot of feelings and desires into looking at these numbers. But what we can see is, looking at we can see trends in early voting, but we can't extrapolate those trends into a final result and what that'll mean. So I think that's important to keep in mind. But, the people what I learned a lot was about who tends to vote early. Like you were saying earlier, it's these people who have already decided, these super voters, these people who are partisan. And as our electorate gets increasingly polarized, it's definitely a possibility that we will see a continued increase in early voting. And I do believe that to be the case as the electorate becomes more polarized. People have already made their decision, and they'll go ahead and cast that ballot. The other trends that we see in terms of who is actually voting early, women tend to vote early. The early voter is more likely to be a woman, an older woman. And Democrats tend to be much more comfortable with mail-in balloting. And of course, you'll see in states, California, for example, that typically go Democrat. That's a mail-in voting state, or a place where mail-in voting is a pretty popular option. So, there are all these things that we can glean about who is doing early voting and how they're doing it. Which I always think is really interesting because, that helps us, that, as you were saying earlier, does shape how elections, how campaigns spend their money, how they spend their time, because once the voters already decide, you don't have to spend money on them anymore.
Yeah, I was joking earlier today that the hardest job in the future may be the campaign manager who's going to have to think of something for the candidate to do over the last couple of weeks so they don't just pace the floor and go a little stir crazy. Having been on a lot of those campaigns, I know a lot of the activities of the last few days of a campaign are really just to distract the candidate and get them to quit worrying.
It could be a case for a short campaign cycle, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, I vote for that.
Yeah, me too. We have these crazy long campaign election cycles, and maybe we could just could be 2 or 3 months.
Yeah,
I think not be something to try out.
It may not be such a bad thing, for sure. And we're really fortunate here in the state of Utah. We've been doing mail-in ballots for a long time, and have really perfected that process so that we can have the utmost confidence. We can even track your vote. You can track it from start to finish, from the time it leaves your hand to the time it's been tallied and counted, and just a lot of confidence in that process that's so important. Ellen Ionis covers global and general assignment news as the World and Weekend reporter at Vox. Great piece. Check it out at vox.com. And Ellen, thanks for joining us today. Great perspective.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's
999-6370. My team is standing by now.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age. Brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I was always tired, with weekly bouts of indigestion. A friend asked me, when was the last time you did a detox? Never, I said. So she recommended Active Liver.
Our liver works hard every day to remove toxins from processed foods and unclean air and water. But too many toxins can overwhelm the liver, causing it to actually store toxins in our body fat. Low energy, brain fog, headaches, bloating, and skin irritation are all telltale signs that we need to act. Water or juice fasts can help, but often require days or weeks of feeling tired and sick. Thankfully, there's an easier way. Active Liver from New Nordic is a natural supplement that helps your liver effectively eliminate toxins on a daily basis, leaving you feeling better with more energy and less bloating.
Within a week of taking Active Liver, I was feeling better, and now I have more energy than I've had in years.
Available in both tablet or delicious gummies, you can find Active Liver online at Amazon or NewNordicUSA.com or in stores at your local CVS or Meijer grocery.
Point! Hey, you okay? You don't normally miss those shots.
I just haven't been as regular lately, and it's making me feel sluggish.
You should try Metamucil. It's been a game changer for me. Metamucil's plant-based psyllium fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Ace, you're moving better than you were last week.
Definitely.
Metamucil keeps you moving. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Learn more at Metamucil.com.
I spray and scrub, but the soap scum in my bathtub is still there.
I spray and scrub, but the burnt sauce on my stovetop sticks around.
Sprays can leave grime behind, but Mr. Clean Ultra Foamy Magic Eraser combines the scrubbing power of an eraser with the cleaning power of Dawn to melt away tough messes on contact.
Just wet, squeeze, and erase.
Stop spraying, start erasing, and clean with more magic than ever with Ultra Foamy Magic Eraser.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you have a drain that's clogged or backed up, after you've tried the plungers and products, the next step usually involves some kind of drain snake or cabling equipment. You see, sometimes the blockage is far enough down the line that you need special equipment that most homeowners just don't have. That's where the Drains Department at Any Hour Services can help. A drain snake can clear most blockages and get the water flowing again, and clearing blocked drains is what our Drains Department does day in and day out. So if you're a homeowner with a drain line that's clogged or backed up and you'd like one of our drain technicians to come and snake the line for you, it's only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Managing today's uncertainty can be overwhelming. We crave security, and it's uncomfortable when we sense a lack of control over our lives. Develop a routine for a more balanced lifestyle with healthy habits and fun. Focus on what you can control. even if it's little things, like a before bedtime ritual.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, once you drop off or mail in your ballot, Utah allows you to track it through the collection and counting process. Second, President Biden says the U.S. economy is stronger now than before the pandemic. And third, actor Terry Garr has died at the age of 79. 45 degrees, cloudy and windy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we march our way 1 week from today, folks, as we come down the home stretch of a very contentious 2024 election cycle, there's a lot of things that we ought to think again about what we think we know, and one of those is language. The other is how we actually keep the peace a little bit and our own sanity as we go through these kinds of election cycles. And really thrilled to have joining us on the program today, once again, Jacob Hess, staff writer, Latter-day Saint Voices editor for the Deseret News, and has had 2 great pieces coming down the home stretch that I have found really important. One on the linguistic battle that we face in our society. The other on this whole idea of just being angry and hopeless all the time isn't healthy for us, and that there's actually some real practical, tactical things that we can do to do it different. And Jacob, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Boyd, for all the good you do.
So let's dive into this. I want to start with the first one. Many of us, of course, go back to the beloved movie Princess Bride and those wonderful words. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. And we see that a lot in our politics these days.
Yeah. I think we take for granted, because we're all speaking English, that we assume we mean the same things with the words we use. And it's just not true. Liberals and conservatives are using the, quote, same word in very different ways, and sometimes in such diametrically opposite ways that make it impossible to talk. But the idea is, if we're aware of this, then we can say, hey, Boyd, what do you mean when you say that word? And then it starts a conversation, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the important part, is that we get to a space where we can engage in the conversation and tell me more about that, or dig into it in a little different way, or describe it for me in a different way, so we can get to at least some shared truth and some shared facts, I think, that often prevent us from getting to those important conversations. You've had some great conversations with some of our favorite people, Monica Guzman, Yuval Levin, Judge Thomas Griffith. Share with us just a couple of the things that you've learned from them in terms of the importance of the language, how we speak, and how we get to those better conversations.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good people doing work in these areas. I would say that you don't have to talk to scholars to realize from your own family experience that we sometimes stumble and get tripped up on these little things. But it first really came to me, Boyd, during all of the battles over sexuality that have happened over the last decade, when people would use words like love and hate and bigot, and we assumed we were all on the same page about what it meant to love, but we weren't. And so I started asking people I knew, like, what does it mean to you to love or be accepting? Because poets and theologians have debated these things for thousands of years. And all of a sudden, Americans were thinking we're all on the same page. We're not. We have very different views of what leads to happiness and what constitutes healthy, loving community. But that's an exciting thing, because if we can actually realize that, then again, we say, what does that mean to you? And we don't have to attack. We don't have to just defend. Everything becomes an interesting conversation. The word constitutional, the word biblical mean very different things.
Yeah.
Whether you're liberal or conservative. Those two words are great words for conservatives. But for my secular friends, they're like, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure where you're headed with that. Hey, so let's jump into a couple of real practical, tactical pieces from your Deseret piece that came out this week. Talking about some things that we can just do to stay on both the sanity train and to get to those better conversations. I want to just pop through a couple of them, just rapid fire.
Sure.
One of them, you talk about just being wary of those absolutist pronouncements. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, this is Yuval Levin again. He says, why is it all of a sudden everything depends on this election? And it's certainly really good. Get out the vote. It helps motivate people. But is it actually true? And it's the histrionics around not just this election, but every issue that matters is presented in the boldest, sharpest tones. And he just says, look, for your own sanity and for your emotional health and for the health of our republic, the truth, he says, is usually more nuanced. And actually, this is Isaac Saul, a political journalist. He says, when you realize the truth about most matters is more nuanced, and if we see that, we hyperventilate a lot less.
Yeah.
Because the scary, dark truth is what gets people all worked up. I know a lot of people who are like, very worried that the republic is about to collapse next week, and discerning the truth from the reality can be difficult in times like these.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that you pointed out was that just having that trust that seeing the full truth will make you less scared, not more scared. I think it's such an important piece.
And one thing Isaac Saul suggests, which I think is good, he says, if you read something that gets you worked up, he says, search for the exact opposite argument. So if he's like, oh, those Haitian immigrants in this community are eating pets, he says, I went and searched. Haitian immigrants are not eating pets. The opposite of the thing that's working you up, or the thing that you're convicted on. And he says, interestingly, sometimes I find it persuasive and other times I don't.
Yeah.
But, then you're sort of like, you're seeking the full truth rather than just lurching after something that confirms your own bias and your own ego.
So important. These are great pieces. You need to check these out at Deseret.com. Jacob Hess, again, is a staff writer and Latter-day Saint Voices editor for the Deseret News. And these are two important pieces that we all can just take a little exhale, deep breath, and get some good straight thinking as we march our way last 7 days before the election day. Jacob, as always, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks. Have a happy election week.
All right. We will do that. Again, that's Jacob Hess from the Deseret News. Check out his piece at Deseret.com. And I do love, they have 12 different items on there in terms of some good strategies. And the last one, I think, is second to last one is so significant to me. And that is to ground yourself in something higher than the outcome of the election. We make these zero-sum games. They are not, because the things that are going to matter most are not the things that are going to happen next Tuesday. It's actually what's going to happen next Wednesday. We'll talk about that more coming up. Stick around. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Today's weather helping firefighters battling the Yellow Lake fire in the Uinta National Forest. However, Sierra Hellstrom with the Northern Utah Incident Management Team warns that even though the flames look like they're out, there's still a danger.
A lot of the areas of heat are stump holes or heavy timber that could hold on to heat for a great amount of time. And sometimes the snow acts almost as an igloo that can help retain the heat in an area.
The Yellow Lake fire now 66% contained. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. With the election a week away, President Biden says the U.S. economy is stronger than it's been since the pandemic.
Consumer confidence is up this month larger than ever. The economy is growing. Middle class is doing well. We're showing we're the only nation in the world that always emerges stronger from a crisis than we went into the crisis.
The president was in Baltimore today to announce a plan to spend $3 billion modernizing ports across the country. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down now 154 points on the day, while the NASDAQ is up by 145. And our KSL weather. Even if it's drying out, it's going to stay cool. That's next. KSL News on 201.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
My name is Brian King, and I'm running to be your governor because Utah is headed in the wrong direction, and we can do so much better. If you're frustrated by politics today, if you feel like politicians aren't listening to you, if you're looking for something different, for a leader who prioritizes common sense and bipartisanship, you have a place with us in this campaign. Join us and vote for Brian King for governor by November 5th. For the better.
Paid for by Brian for Utah.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. My team is standing by now.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
It's a quiet drive on the Valley freeways and main secondaries, but Salt Lake City PD working on cleaning up a crash at 6 North and 1100 West. Attention pet parents tired of being a doorman for your furry friends? Say hello to Utah's own Pet Door Products, your ticket to convenience and freedom. Visit petdoorproducts.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We have a freeze warning out for northern Utah tonight, and even as the rain tapers off, we'll see partly cloudy skies tomorrow and Halloween with just a chance of showers. And right now, 45 degrees, cloudy and windy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
A large number of Americans are feeling pretty nervous and pretty anxious about this election cycle. 7 days to go. It's understandable. We're in the middle of some pretty significant shifts in American politics, and sadly, the messaging around anger and fear, angst and frustration is framing all the elections as existential events. It's either the end of the world as we know it, or some other calamity is certain to follow. So rather than minimize and dismiss the feelings of anxiety, those are real, how do we listen to ourselves so that we can actually rise above it? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it's time to think again about what we think we know and get underneath the headlines just a little bit as we come down the home stretch of election 2024. And this is a really important piece and a crucial conversation. Shayla Loves, a staff writer at The Atlantic, has a brilliant piece on election anxiety and that it is telling us something and what we can actually do about that something to change the dynamic. And Shayla, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so let's start with kind of the baseline in terms of the fact that we are feeling a little bit anxious as we come down the last 7 days of the election.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think surveys found even months ago that people were feeling a lot of anxiety about this specific election, and all of the data that's come out shows that it's around, 80% of people, or 7 out of 10 adults on both parties, that are feeling really anxious and stressed, and they're thinking about the election every single day.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I love the way you frame this in your piece, because we always try to get people to think again about what we think we know. And I hadn't thought of it this way, that big events should prompt big feelings. Unpack that for us.
Yeah, so I'm a mental health reporter, and I write about psychology a lot. And usually when I think about the word anxiety, I think about big feelings in response to events that are not so big. So if I have, let's say, like a phobia or anxiety around spiders, I might have a big response to a little spider in my kitchen. And that's certainly something, to work on, and those feelings are valid too. It should be processed. But in this case, that's not really what's going on. There is a really big event happening. And so if people are having big feelings in response to a big event, it should come as no surprise. And if you type election anxiety into Google, there's all of this advice about how to make it go away. And when I saw a lot of that coverage, I kind of felt like this is not an instance of sort of an outsized emotion to a small event. It is a big event. And so having big feelings makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important for us to recognize that, it is a big deal. It's a big event. And so we should have that. And then, of course, it's what we do with that. I love the framing you had around this idea that if we want to really figure out how to impact it, we have to kind of get into the eye of the hurricane because that's where we find that inner strength. Explain that for us.
Yeah, well, this is an idea that came from Arianna Huffington, which I actually feel I disagree with a little bit, where she wrote in Time magazine that Americans shouldn't be stressed out, and that to affect the outcomes, you need to find, this place of inner strength or wisdom that's non-emotional. And I do think we have this tendency to consider emotions or emotional reactions as non-reason or irrational, like when you tell someone to just, calm down so you can think clearly. But actually, emotions can tell you something. There's a philosopher called Martha Nussbaum who argued really well that emotions reveal your values, and she thought of them as value judgments. So when you have an emotion about something, it's revealing what you care about and what matters most to you. And that is sort of how, if you think about the things that you feel about in your day-to-day life, the emotions that you feel if you're watching a TV show, what you feel emotions about are the things that matter to you the most. So emotions have this like real powerful wisdom to them as well. And so we shouldn't just cast them aside as the opposite of reason, or thinking that in order to make an impact, we have to be emotionless to do so.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that whole concept, because sometimes you'll be in a conversation with someone and they'll say, oh, I don't know why I let this bother me. And I always say, no, actually, I'm really glad. I would be really worried if it didn't bother you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of I think that's what you're getting at here, is that it does. I love the term reveal, because it does reveal what we value. We've been talking in terms of every vote is just an expression of what we value and what we prioritize. So kind of walk us through that in terms of how do we connect those dots to feel those big feelings, have it reveal what matters, and then to do something with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think something to say, too, is that although this election feels like it's very special or different, major political shifts have always been met with big feelings. And I spoke to a historian of emotions who said that actually apathy, which was a word that came from religion, became part of Western political language at the end of the 18th century. So being apathetic or not being affected was kind of like being a bad civil citizen because it meant that you didn't take any interest. So I think paying attention to what you're having an emotional response to and not immediately rushing to regulate it, but realizing that those are the issues that matter to you and then taking action accordingly, whether that means voting or talking to your neighbors or family, but letting your emotions guide you in terms of what you want to share and what issues you want to bring up with other people.
Yeah, I think, the apathy and indifference, the indifference is the one that worries me the most, especially as it relates to our relationships with other people. If we don't have those big, strong emotions about, a loved one or a neighbor or a good friend who's maybe sharing something we disagree with or that's hurtful, if we're indifferent, that's a whole nother space which isn't good for society or good for the republic either.
I totally agree. And of course, emotions can do lots of different things. So if someone's emotions are powerful enough to motivate them to support political violence or to not speak to anyone who has a disagreeing opinion in them, this is an emotion that's not really acting functionally. And so there are political philosophers who think about how emotions work in the political context. And they think about an emotion is fitting if it is functional, if it allows you to better the world around you and not sort of like silo off and make it worse.
Yeah. Give us one last thought in terms of things that you hope we would think again about or maybe even do different as we come down this last little bit, as we feel some of those anxious thoughts, as we sense some of the bigness of the things that are coming. What else should we be thinking about, or what else should we be doing a little different this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think we live in a culture with a really strong tendency to regulate big emotions. And in some ways, these are really valuable skills to have because we shouldn't just go around kind of like reacting to everything so quickly. But when big things are happening, it's kind of a privilege we have to emotionally respond to them. And I include an example in the piece from this dystopian novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is the novel by Philip K. Dick that Blade Runner is based on. And in this dystopian world, people don't know what to feel, and they have to program using this machine called a mood organ, what their feelings are, and they try to match up their feelings to what's going on around them. And, even if it feels bad to be anxious about the election, we don't live in that dystopian world. We have reactions that are fitting to our surroundings. And so to just feel it and lean into it is totally okay.
I love that. I think that's so important. This is a brilliant piece. Check it out at theatlantic.com. Shayla Love's writer for The Atlantic. And Shayla, thanks so much for joining us. This was a brilliantly done piece, a great insight, and some important things for us to think about as we march our way towards the first Tuesday of November. And so as we circle back and think again about what we think we know, you are going to have big feelings. That's a good thing. So it's not about shutting down the feeling or the emotion or the angst. It's recognizing it. And then I love the way Shayla framed it. Let it show you and let it reveal to you what you value, what's important to you, what are you worried about? And then you can figure out what to do with that, whether that's expressing it in a vote, something you share online, something you share with a neighbor or a friend or a colleague, but you can do it in a way that makes you an active participant, not someone who's just being apathetic or indifferent. And so feel the emotion, absolutely, and then it's what you do with it that matters most. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. What's much less frightening than...
We traced the call. It's coming from inside the house. It's coming from inside the house.
Why, KSL's election analysis, of course. This week, get full coverage of Your Voice, Your Vote 2024. And happy Halloween from KSL News Radio.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
Hi friends, Dan the Laptop Man here from PC Laptops. In celebration of over 32 years of serving humans in Utah with their computer and tech needs, we've slashed our prices. And these are the new 2025 models. Here's the deal. You can get our new 2025 S1 desktop with a blazing Ryzen 5 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and over a terabyte of blazing fast storage on this promotion. We also have our new 2025 SM3 laptop with the Intel i5 processor, 16 gigs, and over a terabyte of storage for $999. You can take one home today for $999. And you also get the peace of mind of our lifetime service warranty. We also have 12 months special financing available, and they start as low as $29 a month. But hurry in because supplies are limited. Because at PC Laptops, we love you. PCLaptops.com. Take home a blazing fast 2025 model desktop or laptop for $999 at PCLaptops.com.
This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep Medical. But first, take the time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep Medical delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. End the days of a poor night's sleep. Sound Sleep Medical will help. Call Sound Sleep Medical at 801-716-8672 for details. Sound Sleep Medical.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
An airliner takes off from the Pacific Northwest, carrying 101 passengers and crew. Most aboard Flight 293 are active-duty military and their families, headed to Cold War assignments in Alaska.
Surveillance of the Soviet military buildup.
But somewhere over the ocean, with no distress call, the airliner plunges into the icy water below.
Even if all four engines quit, that aircraft would fly.
There were no survivors and no bodies were ever recovered. For decades, loved ones were left to wonder
what happened to Flight 293 and why hasn't there been any follow-up.
The government turned its back. Passengers and crew of Flight 293 were forgotten by everyone, except their families.
Unless we pursue it, we will never be issued a true explanation.
Unsolved Histories, What Happened to Flight 293 is available now. Follow us at unsolvedhistoriespod.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Today's weather helping firefighters get ahead of the Yellow Lake wildfire. Second, President Biden says the U.S. economy is doing better than at any time since the COVID pandemic. Third, the owner of a funeral home in Georgia facing criminal charges after deputy sheriffs found 18 decomposing bodies. 45 degrees, cloudy and windy in Salt Lake. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, personal growth and human connection remain the bedrock of success in our rapidly changing world. And even as technology reshapes how we live, how we work, being able to master those fundamental human skills is increasingly vital for navigating all the complexities that we have in our world. The principles of personal effectiveness, from self-leadership to meaningful collaboration, offer timeless guidance for those who are really trying to make a difference and have a lasting impact. And so by developing these essential capabilities, we can create positive change not only in our own lives, but of course in our neighborhoods, our communities, and beyond. Todd Davis, senior leadership consultant, 7 Habits content expert, thought leader at Franklin Covey with over 35 years of experience in human resources, talent development, and executive recruiting, joins us on the line, running and gunning from one plane to the next, and a new program released yesterday on how we can navigate all of this. And Todd, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Boyd. It's great to connect with you again.
All right. Well, give us a breakdown in terms of, obviously there's a lot of focus on solving big problems in Washington, D.C. You've spent most of your career proving that the real problems are solved in organizations and in communities. What are the kinds of things that we need to refocus on if we're really going to solve problems?
Yeah, well, in your intro, with all of the latest in technology and AI taking over the world, as some would say, in a recent survey we just did, just read about 290 companies that strongly use AI still rate among their top skills needed are interpersonal skills or emotional intelligence. And so regardless of how advanced technology gets, which is awesome, it still boils down to us communicating, understanding each other, being able to work effectively with each other. And that's what 7 Habits has been all about for, 35 years now.
Yeah, 35 years. It's an amazing set of core principles. And you've been able to see those applied in so many different settings. And as you said, even as AI and a lot of those advancements go, it's so interesting to me as I talk to business leaders around the planet. They're all saying, give me someone who can really write a letter or, craft a message or engage in some compromise. What are you seeing, and what do we need to do to get back to some of those core skills that seem to be a little lacking in the business world today?
Well, exactly that. And AI can even write letters, but what AI will never be able to do, and what we all need to do better, is just really understanding one another. And this is one of the many things that comes out of 7 Habits. As I mentioned, it's been around 35 years, but because it's principle-based, as you mentioned, it's as relevant today as it was when Stephen Covey first wrote about them. In fact, I had someone in one of the marketing events I'm presenting at say the other day that he was about 55 years old, and he said his son, who just graduated college up in Portland, sent him a note and said, "Hey, Dad, I just read the coolest book. I've got to send it to you." and this man said, "What is it?" And he goes, "The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People." and I chuckled, but I also thought it's just a testament to how relevant, because they're principle based. Certainly the application changes because our world changes, but the principles and the habits themselves are, in fact, more relevant today because of all the quite frankly chaos that's going on in the world.
Yeah, no question about that. One of my prized possessions were the notes that my father took when Stephen Covey spoke at a cabin up above Camas in Oakley, Utah, and before any books were printed or anything was done. And as you said, those principles are absolutely timeless that way. As we look at how we apply those in the world that we live in now, what are some of the things that you're teaching? What are some of the things that you're finding as you work with individuals and organizations to take those timeless principles and apply them in this complicated world?
Yeah. So realizing in both our professional life and our personal lives, we can't control or even change a lot, but we can choose our response to any situation. And reminding ourselves as human beings of that we have a choice in how we respond, that there's something we can always influence, that we, as in Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. We have much more influence and power, if you will, not in a bad sense, but in a good sense, if we take time to understand other people first. And so those are a few of the principles that come from the habits that apply certainly in the workplace, but also in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah. And how are you applying these in organizations as you travel, as you teach and train? How is that going from a leadership standpoint as to these new people entering that are discovering these things as if they were brand new today?
Yeah, and they are. They're seeing these, and new people are thinking that it's a brand new book and it's been around for 35 years. But the point here is, Travis Bradberry, who's got a double PhD in the topic of emotional intelligence, just published a great new book on it. He has done many stories showing that top performers in organizations across the board are extremely high in their emotional intelligence, their interpersonal skills. And I have seen for the going on 29 years now that I've been with Franklin Covey, it is absolutely the solution to help you increase the emotional intelligence and the interpersonal skills of your organization, certainly your leaders, but everybody throughout the organization.
Yeah, no question about that. And as you start to apply those within organizations, and as we try to do that in our own communities, out of all of those 7 habits, what's the one that is kind of your go-to? Like if you're feeling just a little sideways, either in an interaction or on a business project or in a community situation, what's the one you always go back to that like, okay, here's the core of the core for me?
Yeah, thank you, Boyd. Habit 1 is habit 1 for a reason. It's be proactive. And it's the habit that reminds us, as I said a few minutes ago, we are the person, or we can choose to be the people in charge of our own lives. And so while we can't, as I said, fix a lot of things or almost anything, we can choose our response to any situation. By thinking about that, it, for me anyway, and for many people that I've coached, it opens up doors for new ways of accomplishing things and new opportunities.
Fantastic. Great stuff as always. They are as timely today as they were when they first emerged. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Todd Davis, Senior Leadership Consultant, 7 Habits Content Expert, and a thought leader at Franklin Covey. And Todd, we appreciate you making time on what I know is a busy day for you. We'll let you continue your safe travels, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks for the difference you're making for not only for organizations, but for communities around the planet. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Boyd.
All right. Again, that's Todd Davis joining us on the line there as he was running through airports, and always appreciate his willingness to do that and to talk about these core principles. Because if you think about it, one, this is why we do this show. Again, we talk about politics so we can explore society. We explore society so we can talk about the principles and the people who actually live them. And I think that's what they've been trying to do at Franklin Covey for a very long time now. And Todd Davis is one of the best out there in teaching those principles. I love the fact that he's saying, hey, a young professional is saying, hey, have you read 7 Habits? It's like, yeah, it came out 35 years ago. But those principles are timeless. It's the application of them that becomes unique to each season and to each stage of life that you go through. But these are the very things that we have to get back to when we talk about trying to solve big problems in our nation's capital or around our own kitchen table. These are the same things. It's listening to understand. It's being proactive, as Todd was talking about today, engaging in it. I think it's also making sure that we have those things that renew us, kind of the sharpening of the saw, and making sure we can leverage diverse perspectives to solve problems, to innovate, and achieve more together than we could just individually. I think this should actually be part of the new member training for members of the House and the Senate. I think it would actually also be a good transition plan for any new administration going into the White House. This is where they should start. These are a set of principles that if someone would take those, live those, apply those, doesn't mean you solve all the problems, doesn't mean you're not going to have difficulties and setbacks and obstacles, but it means you have a path around, through, over, or beyond to get to a better space. And it is these principles. It is why we've always done this show, is to get to these very things, because this is what solves it. It's not an act of Congress. It's not a presidential declaration. If we want to solve homelessness, if we want to deal with the drug epidemic, if we want to deal with mental health, if we want to deal with poverty, if we want to create more upward mobility, those things are not going to be done because of a piece of legislation. It's going to be done through leadership, leaders who lead in the present and who apply timeless principles to the problem. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next. Sam Abrams is going to join us from Sarah Lawrence College. You don't want to miss that. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Utah's growing sports market having a multi-billion-dollar impact on the state's economy. Tourism experts say sports are now driving about a third of Salt Lake City's overnight hotel bookings. Here's KSL News Radio's Adam Small.
Visit Salt Lake President and CEO Caitlin Eskelson tells me a lot of the hotel stays are coming from parents bringing their kids in for youth sporting events, and that there is a correlation between interest in youth sports and local professional sports teams. For example, they're now seeing a surge in youth hockey demand after the Utah Hockey Club came to town, and this is an industry that's already bringing in tens of billions of dollars nationally.
Eskelson says the revenue from youth sports will only get bigger if we land more professional sports teams. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A funeral home owner in Coffee County, Georgia, is facing 17 counts of abuse of a dead body, several families seeking answers after investigators say 18 decomposing bodies were found there. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation says this started as an eviction notice. The sheriff's office reached out to GBI after they found 18 decomposing bodies, along with a couple of pets, a dog and a cat, in various stages of decomposition. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day now, closing trading down 154 points, while the NASDAQ finished today up 145. And our KSL weather. Looks like things will dry out, but staying cool for a day or two. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day. Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy two. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
The Management Minute is a service of the MBA program in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. I followed as one of my former students, an experienced manager, went through the hiring process. He went through a screening and then 4 levels of interviews before he was finally hired. After 4 or 5 months of failed applications, by the way, I asked him why he finally succeeded, and he gave me this gem of wisdom. I realized that most of the applicants that they were interviewing had the technical skills to do the job right. To stand out, I needed to show my collaboration skills. He was right. The president of a country, a college, or a corporation will face complex problems. Complex problems can only be solved through collaboration. To learn collaboration with others, learn it in an MBA program at Utah State University. Go to utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meeks.
We do have a new accident in Salt Lake. This is at the bottom of the on-ramp to northbound I-15 at 1300 South. It's on the right. And in Tooele County, a crash westbound I-80. It's 4 miles east of Skull Valley Road, and it has been affecting the right lane of travel. Ricky Meeks in the KSL Traffic Center.
And we're about done with the rain now, but we'll see partly cloudy skies tomorrow and Halloween and just a chance of showers. There's a freeze warning for northern Utah overnight. Right now, 46 degrees with some showers around. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
I'm one of those people who happen to believe that the role that libraries play in communities and on university campuses is absolutely essential. A neutral, calm place and space for students and members of the community to rest, to learn, to research, to meet together, to think again about what they think they know. But what happens when those library spaces also become a place that's politicized? How do we respond to keep neutral ground, sacred ground, holy ground, important ground? It's always a good day on this show when Sam Abrams, non-resident senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and professor of politics and social science at Sarah Lawrence College, joins us. And Sam, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Great piece talking about the sacred and neutral ground of libraries. Give us a little bit of the backstory.
Sure. So I'm obsessed with libraries. And one of the reasons is you go in to be curious and everything is there. Even if it offends some, it's all on the shelves to peruse and see. And unfortunately, a number of days ago, about 24 Harvard professors, these are folks, by the way, who never go into the libraries. They have books sent to them, incidentally, lined up, went into the main reading room of Widener Library at Harvard, which is the central library, and sat down and staged a silent protest. And they put placards up on their desks. They said nothing. And the signs themselves weren't even offensive. They actually had good messaging. And they thought that that was enough to get them out of some trouble. But at the end of the day, the fact that they showed up, people knew that they were there. People knew why they were there. And they weren't fooling anyone. Fortunately, Widener Library put them on suspension and said, you're not coming back for a few weeks. But this has exploded in the higher ed space with faculty saying, oh, it's an overreach. They should be allowed to do it. And then folks like me saying, no way. The fact is, this is a neutral space, and you chose to not make it neutral. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, that's so vital because, again, you can have the debate over free speech and free expression and all of that, but time and space do matter in that conversation.
Absolutely. And again, they're trying to pretend they didn't disrupt anyone, but they did. Everyone knew they were there. The students knew they were there. They brought media with them. They made their politics very clear, and they disrupted the educational mission of the students who were working there. Now, if they wanted to borrow a room and have some political conference or meeting, by all means, you're welcome to do that. The library can host political events in certain spaces, but the main reading room is not such a space, and that is a space that has to be open to all and free of distraction. Now, one student or person can be in there and wear a slogan or have a sticker on a bottle or something. That's not overly disruptive. People can say, oh, I don't like that. I'll move or I'll find somewhere else or, figure that out. But that's not, again, what happened. This was an en masse, deliberate attempt to disrupt the peace, quiet, and the educational process.
Yeah, and so kind of walk us around the back end of that. What should we be thinking and what should we be concerned about, not just at Harvard, but at other places of higher education when it comes to our libraries and that space to simply be curious?
So first and foremost, that is the point of higher education in the university, to be curious. And as we've talked about far too many times, and I only say far too many times because it's not getting better everywhere, people should be able to ask whatever questions they want, and a library is a place they can go find answers or begin to find answers, and they should be able to have a whole range of material available to them. At the same time, libraries have become center points or flashpoints, if you will, for these controversies. There are now clips on YouTube all the time showing people coming in and protesting in libraries, people running into libraries, people who are studying alone being accosted in these libraries. And our universities need to say, we appreciate free speech, which we do. There are times and places, but the libraries aren't one of them. There are plenty of students who are there to learn, who don't want to be disrupted, and they have to have those safe and quiet spaces to do it. That is what the libraries are. And it is boggling my mind why this is so hard for so many schools, not all of them, but so many, to say enough. This is our core mission. We do not disrupt the core mission.
Yeah, the core mission. To me, it's always about getting to the essence of things, and to me, that is the essence of the core mission of any institution of higher learning. Talk us through it in terms of some of the other places where this kind of bleeds out and spills over, and how we can get to a better place in terms of, yes, we need to have a good protest model that students can go through, and we need to have a really good, here's how you keep it safe and here's how you keep it curious model, because to me that is what our students should be experiencing and learning how to do at higher education.
Well, the good news is we have many leaders, people like Dan Diermeyer down in Vanderbilt, now saying exactly that, and that is a good thing. We have Jonathan Levin at Stanford now saying things like that. That's also a good thing. The very highest people at every school need to re-establish these norms. They need to restate these values, and they need to say they're going to need to say that we're going to hold people accountable for it. So that means if a professor who's supposed to be the teacher decides to be political, we need to say you don't do that. We need to make an example of them. And it doesn't mean they lose their job, but you have to publicly hold them accountable and, chastise them, as awful as that sounds, and say, what are you doing? You are the teacher. The library should have a right to ban people who disrupt those fundamental goals. And, quite frankly, we need more reason and common sense to say not everything is political at all times. There is a time and a space. Universities are very important to this, but don't disrupt people in their dorm rooms. Don't disrupt people when they're eating, if possible. Don't disrupt people in the libraries. If you want to protest outside the library, go right ahead. There are ample places at Harvard where you can do that. Just don't do it in the reading rooms. And there has to be a time and a place for everything. And for some reason, this is part of the narrative we've been talking about for years, where they've lost their way. I'm optimistic because places like Stanford and Vanderbilt now are beginning to right themselves.
So important to get to that space. And if you're just joining us, we've got Samuel Abrams on the line, non-resident senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, professor of politics and social science at Sarah Lawrence College, and he's become one of my favorite friends I've never met, which are my favorite of favorite friends. Yeah, we'll fix that eventually when we get you out here to Utah to take your family skiing. But one of the things that I love is, one, your curiosity, and you're always finding those wow moments or those surprise moments. And so I want to know, what have you read lately? What have you learned lately that was kind of one of those, wow, I'd never thought of it that way, kind of curiosity moments?
I've been into art books and art photography, and learning, quite frankly, that some of the most iconic images, some of the most important things that have captured the human condition have not been taken by people who are actively trying to collect it, but rather there was a great exhibit here where a nanny actually had a camera with her for years in the 40s and 50s, and actually just took pictures on the street. Turns out she captured some of the most poignant photos of what life was like in New York City. So akin to what you're saying, things that surprise us all the time. And I've enjoyed that very, very much.
Yeah, great stuff. As always, Professor Samuel Abrams, thanks so much for joining us today. Fantastic perspective. We will keep that space safe and curious because it is sacred in the library. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, that's Professor Samuel Abrams again joining us from Sarah Lawrence College. He's also a faculty fellow with New York University's Center for Advanced Social Science Research, and just some important conversations there. It's amazing to me how on so many college campuses, even places like the library, have become politicized. But as Professor Abrams was saying, outside, not a problem. Inside, that's learning space. That's curiosity space. That should not be political space. And we have to preserve and protect that so that it's a safe space. A safe space meaning that learning can continue to happen uninterrupted, undisrupted. And it's one of those things that on a lot of campuses we've gotten a little sideways on all of that. It is nice to see, as the professor pointed out, that a lot of universities are saying now, not in time and space matter, time and place matter. And we're not going to do that in our libraries. We've got to preserve that as very important non-political space in the country for sure. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. We'll come back. Final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's official. KSL Sports is your official radio home of the Utah Hockey Club. When the puck hits the ice this fall, you'll hear every goal, every check, and every tension-filled moment on the KSL Sports Zone. Plus, let your voice be heard on the Utah Hockey Club Fan Forum on KSLSports.com. Your exclusive home of the NHL and the Utah Hockey Club in Utah is KSL Sports and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We just want to have enough money for retirement.
And travel to visit our grandchildren.
I understand. That's why at Fisher Investments, we start by getting to know each other, so I can learn about your family, lifestyle, goals, and needs, allowing us to tailor your portfolio.
What about commission-based products?
We don't sell those. We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in your best interest.
So how do your management fees work?
We have a simple management fee based on the value of your portfolio, so we do better when you do better.
We appreciate that kind of transparency.
We also check in with you regularly to keep you up to date on the markets and your portfolio.
What other services do you offer?
As a client, you have access to resources on investing, financial planning, estate planning, Social Security, Medicare, and more.
Wow, it sounds like Fisher Investments has everything we need.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Join KSL Saturday from 11 to 1. Again, 11 to 1 at the Hot Tub Factory Outlet in Farmington, 270 North Central Avenue.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, what are you waiting for? Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
At Macy's, our famous Kong Cone is here to add a sweet chill to your autumn adventures. Whether you're crunching through leaves or cozying up with family, this towering cone of creamy goodness is the perfect fall companion. Stop by Macy's today and grab a famous Kong Cone, because fall is cool, and your treat should be too. Macy's, happy shopping!
Step into the warmth of the holidays at Western Nut. We're here to make gift-giving special and stress-free. Grandpa's favorite peanut brittle, a gift basket with a variety of nuts and treats for your neighbor who brings in your garbage cans. How about your coworkers? Yep, we've got you covered with our nut gift boxes, pre-wrapped in holiday paper, homemade caramels, baking nuts, popcorn brittle, dried fruit trays, and cashews galore. Local honey and jams, and our Nut of the Month subscription give a variety of nut gift boxes straight to their door. Our shop is a winter wonderland, and this year, join us to kick off our huge holiday preview sale and save on everything in store. 4th South and 3rd West, November 7th, 8th, and 9th. Stuck at the North Pole? Visit westernut.com or call our team, who will take your order and ship your gift with care. Western Nut has been a part of Utah family traditions for nearly 60 years. More than nuts. At Western Nut Company, we sell memories.
Did you know 96% of Americans lose an average of $111,000 in Social Security income? And it's because they claim their benefits at the wrong time. Don't lose $111,000 in Social Security income that's rightfully yours. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits on Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL, News Radio 102.7.
He's coming. Here he comes. Surprise! Your table saw broke. Also, the warranty expired weeks ago, so you need to pay for a new one out of pocket.
At Progressive, we know small business owners don't usually like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money? Getting a commercial auto quote from Progressive.
Oh, and the replacement part you ordered doesn't fit, so it's completely useless. What a waste.
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Tim and Amanda.
One of the big differences, I think, between reading a story online and hearing it from us, Tim, is that, you and I are allowed to share a reaction. We need to be able to say, what in the world were they thinking? So that people listening will know. We feel it too. When we read a story that sounds ridiculous, we're right with you. It sounds ridiculous.
Well, we get caught up, I'm sure just like our listeners do sometimes, in death scrolling on social media. And fact-checking it on your own is tough. The great thing about tuning in every morning and starting your morning with us on KSL is you can count on the fact that when that information comes out of the radio in your direction, it comes from reliable sources.
It's already been fact-checked.
Right. And that's not always easy when you're getting it online. Finding who wrote it, when was it written, has it been updated with the current facts of the day that change sometimes minute to minute, not just day to day.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, pro sports, even kids sports, are having a big economic impact in downtown Salt Lake. Second, Steve Bannon, a Trump loyalist who just got out of prison, says the former president is about to have the biggest political comeback ever. And third, just before Halloween, authorities in Georgia have found 18 decomposing bodies in a funeral home. 46 degrees with some showers around. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, of course, there's a lot of things heating up as we come down the final days of the 2024 election cycle. Hard to believe that next Tuesday will be the first Tuesday of November. Will be Election Day, just 7 days away. And a lot of that is bringing a lot of angst and frustration. Of course, a bevy of political ads are being thrown at us in every direction, whether we're watching television or we're online. And most of it is a lot of anger, fear, frustration, angst, all those negative base emotions that have come to dominate our political discourse. Over the course of the program today, we've actually been trying to unravel and unpack that just a little bit so that we can respond appropriately and not react just out of pure negative base emotions. If you missed any of the program today, you're going to want to go back to kslpodcast.com and just click on Inside Sources. And we had some fascinating conversations today. Shayla Love joined us from The Atlantic, and she actually made a really important point. I hadn't thought about it this way. And she said that election anxiety is actually telling you something. It's telling you something that's important. And so often we try to say, oh, just ignore the big emotion, avoid the big angst or anxiety, producing incident or event. And she said, no, actually, it's important to recognize that a big event should prompt big feelings. Now, it's what you choose to do with those that is the real test. But trying to ignore them or to dismiss them as not real or not rational is not real or rational. And so learning to step back and say, you know what, this is big. It feels big. And so I'm going to allow myself to feel it as big. Now, she also compared and contrasted that. If you have a big fear of spiders and it causes you to be irrational, that's a big emotional response to something that's pretty small. And so there's a way to work through that. But the thing that I worry about is because we are so inundated with the messaging that is big and overwhelming, that this is the most important election in history, that this candidate or that candidate is an existential threat to our democracy and the future of freedom around the world, those things aren't real. And so we have to learn to recognize, okay, what can we do? Where can we play? What are the principles at play? And that's what we've been trying to get at. So feel the big feeling and say, yeah, this is important. And then what am I going to do about it? Because that's the right response. And you make that right response based on principles. Big events reveal to us in those big emotions what we value. If you have a big argument with a spouse or a loved one and suddenly you're feeling all those big overwhelming feelings, that's actually a good thing. Because if you didn't feel anything, if you were indifferent or if you were apathetic, then you really don't have a relationship. I was talking about it in the context of someone said, oh, I hate that these things bother me, or I shouldn't take it so personally. And I said, no. The fact that it does bother you is important. It's part of your striving for excellence. It's part of your commitment to do things better, or to accomplish a goal, or to be successful. Indifference is dangerous. Apathy is incredibly dangerous. And so the fact that you might be feeling some anxiety or some stress going into Election Day 2024, it's okay. It's a good thing. Just feel it and then recognize what can you do about it. And when you start to recognize that there are things that you can do and things that you should do, starting in your own home, in your own neighborhood, in your own community, that should give you confidence. Because that's where everything happens anyway. The one thing we should disconnect from is to think that the whole world is going to hinge on a single election for a single person to a single office. Our country has survived great presidents, and our country has survived some pretty bad presidents. We've survived presidents who inspired the best within us, and we have survived presidents who did less than that, or even worse. And so the important thing for us to recognize and to always remember, especially in the heat of political season, when we're bombarded with all the negativity, is that community and culture lead this nation, and the politicians will follow. And our politicians, some of them, unfortunately, will try to convince us that they're leading, that they're in charge. And if they lose, you're in trouble, because you'll lose power, you'll lose influence. Everything's going to fall apart if they're not there. We've talked many times on this program about the fallacy of the irreplaceable. Everybody's replaceable. Some are harder to replace than others, true, but everybody's replaceable. It's the way the founders designed it. It's seasonal work. You come in, you go like crazy, you try to make a difference, you try to leave a legacy, and then you move on. And we should all remember that. And then we should make sure that we're functioning within our circle of influence, what we can actually do. We had a great conversation with Todd Davis talking about the 7 habits of highly effective people. 35 years on now, those principles of responding, choosing to respond in your circle of influence, as opposed to just reacting to that outward area of concern, makes all the difference. And it puts you in a position of strength. It gives you confidence. And it gives you the ability to actually do something that will matter and will make a difference in your world and in the people that you actually care about the most. So as we come down the home stretch, everybody take a big old deep breath. We're all going to be just fine, because not only will next Tuesday come, the first Tuesday of November is coming, folks, 7 days away. The first Wednesday is just 8 days away. and it will come too, and we're all going to be just fine. That wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. It's 46 degrees. KSL's top story, election security. The investigation into ballot box explosions continues. Federal investigators believe one person was responsible for pipe bombs in Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington that may have destroyed at least a few of the ballots inside. Vancouver's police chief says they're now watching closely.
We are wary of how contentious election seasons can be, and so we are going to adjust our methods to whatever we hear is going on outside.
Fire suppressant inside the ballot box kept most of the contents from burning up, but while they ratchet up election security in the Northwest, how protected are we here in Utah? KSL News Radio's Hugo Ricard-Bell went looking for answers.
Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman says Utah ballot security is almost watertight.
I have law enforcement that picks up from our drop boxes. Due to the nature of this election, I'm picking up every single day. That includes Sunday.
She told Dave and Janovic this morning Utah ballot boxes have cameras and fire suppression systems, and voters will be notified once their vote has been counted.
If you drop it off on a Monday, you should start getting notification by Tuesday.
In 2022, it became state law for counties to require 24-hour surveillance during elections. Here, Ricard Bell, KSL News Radio.
And once you drop off or mail in your ballot, Utah elections officials want you to know how to track your ballot. State Elections Director Ryan Cowley told Dave and Dujanovic you can set up text or email notifications that'll tell you exactly where your vote is.
When it's returned, when it's counted, if it's challenged, those kind of things, you'll receive that push notification. And that's awesome because once you put that in the drop box, you can have the peace of mind once that's counted and be like, yep, my ballot's good to go.
You can sign up for these automatic notifications on the state elections website. We have a link for you at kslnewsradio.com. Trump ally Steve Bannon says he's empowered after 4 months in prison. Maria Chaleos is live at the KSL National News Desk.
Jeff, the political strategist, telling reporters the 4 months that he spent in prison galvanized him.
I'm finally out of being a political prisoner by the Merrick Garland, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi regime.
Bannon also amplifying false claims about the 2020 election and said that he will do what he can to elect Trump president again. Bannon was serving time in a federal prison for defying a congressional subpoena from the investigation into the January 6th attack at the Capitol. Former President Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, held a rally in Saginaw, Michigan, where he praised the people who came to the rally at Madison Square Garden over the weekend.
We had patriots from all over the country showing up, speaking, volunteering, and of course we had over 100,000 New Yorkers who showed up for the rally itself.
The capacity at Madison Square Garden is roughly 20,000. The Trump campaign is coming under fire for racist and bigoted comments made by some of the speakers at that rally. As Vice President Harris gets ready for a big speech on the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. tonight, her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, is spending the day campaigning across the battleground state of Georgia. Walz speaking directly to voters who say they feel like they were better off 4 years ago under the Trump administration than now.
4 years ago, when he tells you, were things better 4 years ago? Yeah, if you were a billionaire because you got a tax cut. The rest of us got screwed during the deal. That's what happened.
Walz also saying 4 years ago was the start of the COVID pandemic, which Donald Trump didn't take seriously. Live from the KSL National News Desk, I'm Maria Chaleos, KSL News Radio.
Well, a warm October is coming to an end with colder weather, but it wasn't just us this month in Japan. There's no snow atop Mount Fuji. The snow-capped mountain isn't. First time November arrives without any snow on Fuji. First time, in fact, in 130 years. Utah's mountains, of course, will be snow-capped as November arrives. Snowbird got 3 inches overnight, and the temperature is supposed to stay cool. So this snow might be the start of the winter base for skiing. The Yellow Lake Fire is now 70% contained. Snow has fallen in the fire zone since last night, which is helping with the struggle.
Snow, such as we're getting right now here, is starting to cool those hot spots and will assist in knocking down some of those heat sources that were continuing to cause that uncontained perimeter.
Sierra Hellstrom with the Northern Utah Type 3 Incident Management Team. While the storm is helping to quell the flames, Hellstrom says the fire is still a danger. A man is dealing with serious injuries after a car accident this morning. Salt Lake City police say a truck and a pedestrian in a wheelchair collided. The cause of the accident remains unknown and police are investigating. But new data from federal regulators confirms that Utah is a very dangerous place for pedestrians.
It's not a top 5 list Utah wants to be on. However, the Beehive State ranks as the 4th worst for auto pedestrian fatalities. The research from the National Highway Safety Administration shows 195 people were killed in crashes between 2018 and 2022, with nearly 47% of those deaths occurring at intersections. Safety experts say the trend is a big concern. They're reminding both drivers and pedestrians to be extra careful, especially at intersections, and say pedestrians should use the crosswalks as quickly as possible. Heather Kelly, KSL News Radio.
Be especially careful in this kind of weather. First look traffic now, Ricky Meese. Is the weather impacting things?
Well, we do have a fatal accident in Utah County, and this is way down there on SR 96. That road is closed. It's south of Highway 6 and Soldier Summit near the Schofield Mountains, so just keep that in mind if that's your travels. And we do have a snow-covered road. It's kind of icy and dicey in Little Cottonwood Canyon in the higher elevation. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
My Minute of News is coming right up.
Robinhood is introducing forecast contracts so you can trade the presidential election. Through Robinhood, you can now trade financial derivatives contracts on who will win the U.S. presidential election, Harris or Trump, and watch as contract prices react to real-time market sentiment. Each contract you own will pay $1 on January 8th, 2025, if that candidate is confirmed as the next U.S. president by Congress. Learn more about the presidential election contracts on Robinhood at www.robinhood.com/election. The risk of loss in trading commodity interests can be substantial. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your financial condition. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Commodity interest trading is not appropriate for everyone. Displayed prices are based on real-time market sentiment. This event contract is offered by Robinhood Derivatives, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. Exchange and regulatory fees apply. Learn more at www.robinhood.com/election.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Spend your workday with a talk show that makes you feel better about the news.
Debbie is the voice of reason, and Dave reminds me of my little brother. Well-spoken, and they're a great team together.
Dave and Debbie, live from 9 to noon, or podcast the show on the app for KSL News Radio.
This is My Minute of News, brought to you by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air, anyhourservices.com. The clock is ticking toward Halloween. The pumpkins are carved, the candy's been purchased, the trick-or-treat plans are in place, and you can count the hours till the little urchins overtake the sidewalks in a pint-sized version of The Purge for one night only. All the candy is free! Now imagine a country where there is no Halloween. Because the truth is, this is a uniquely American holiday. In other countries, October 31st comes and goes. Our own Hugo Ricard Bell is from Australia.
I've never participated in Halloween properly until I got here.
Yeah, in Australia, they don't stock up on candy, the kids don't trick-or-treat, but the past couple of years, this American holiday has been slowly creeping into their culture. Hugo says before that, he only knew about Halloween because he saw it in the movies. It's more likely a kangaroo would knock on the door in Australia, but 2 years ago, there they were on his doorstep, his first ever real-world trick-or-treaters.
This young family knocked on the door, trick or treat, and they're wearing their little costumes, and we answered the door and looked down our noses at them.
They're creepy and they're kooky.
spooky, mysterious, and spooky.
Did you know what they were doing? That you're supposed to give them candy?
Had no idea what they were talking about.
So what did you do?
One of my friends, as a joke, handed them, I would describe it as contraband.
Hugo, what did the kids get?
Cigarette.
Dude, what's wrong with your friends?
Jeff, I'm going to go out on a limb here and speak for the entirety of my country and say that we probably all think Halloween's a dumb holiday, but it's a good excuse to dress up, and Australians are always looking for an excuse to have a good time.
It's going to take a while for Australia to get Halloween right.
Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News, only on KSL News Radio.
Crikey. Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
For those who are headed southbound on I-15, traffic a little busy in spots, but no real delays as you go from the South Interchange to Draper. The rest of your Salt Lake County freeways looking good. No accidents. I-15 in Utah County, both directions, good speeds and no problems between the Point and Provo. We have had a little bit of busy traffic southbound on Mountain View, approaching 3500 south. Snow, it's still on the roadway in the higher elevation of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Steve?
Northbound 15 looks good right now, leaving downtown Salt Lake City into Davis County. We have a crash, though, clearing in Clearfield. Northbound 15 there at the on-ramp at Center Street on the right shoulder. Otherwise, good speeds on the 215 West Belt and Legacy so far. Transform your outdated kitchen with half-price granite. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite starting at $25 per square foot installed. Visit halfpricegranite.com. Affordable luxuries. Steve Carlson in the KSL Traffic Center.
How about a high of only 47 today, courtesy of an overnight cold front, chance for rain, snow showers. 34 overnight tonight, mostly cloudy skies, going for 49, mostly sunny by Wednesday afternoon. From the KSL Weather Center, I'm Matt Johnson.
46 in Salt Lake City, so Kamala Harris is delivering her closing argument tonight. But what does that mean? Stay here. We're going to talk with the correspondent from ABC News coming up. We are streaming live at KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's news, traffic, and weather.